Welcome to another Inside Carolina Daily Duo. Greg and Tommy, we're still searching for a name, getting closer. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Greg Barnes. Sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, as always. Sweatshirt says it all. There is no offseason. Greg and I will be doing these two-man shorts for a while, every day, for you to get your Inside Carolina fix. Greg, big news. Notre Dame's in a tizzy. Notre Dame and the ACC passing words. Notre Dame left out of the college football playoffs. I saw a sign or a meme that said, play like a champion today unless you don't make the college football playoff and then quit. What's going on?
It's an embarrassment. And look, I think everybody understands my position on all this. I think the ACC had an opportunity back in 2020 to really put Notre Dame in a unique situation where they would need to join the ACC. Because if you remember back, a lot of schools were electing not to play football because of COVID. This was before there was that full waiver for 2020. So a lot of players were opting out across the country because, if the season was cut short to 4 games and they played 4 games, they lost the season. And ultimately that wasn't the case. And this is really granted that waiver, but that was a lot of the reason for some of the concerns. And then you get into all the protocols where teams were having to skip games and that kind of thing. So because of that, Notre Dame had no opportunity to schedule a non-conference schedule. But of course, they're not in any conference, so they didn't really have it set up for them to be able to play many teams across the country, which has been detrimental to the Fighting Irish. And the ACC swooped in and saved the day. And I thought the ACC really kind of failed to do their conference justice in holding Notre Dame's feet to the fire then. And so what happens? 5 years later, when Miami beats Notre Dame head-to-head in the regular season, and it gets down to the decision to field the college football playoff, the ACC has the gumption to say, hey, we think Miami's deserving because they're a conference member. And if we didn't say that, we wouldn't be doing our jobs as ACC administration. And it helped probably, but Miami gets in, Notre Dame does not. And as you say, Notre Dame pitches a hissy fit. It's ridiculous. Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua, some of the things he said on the Dan Patrick show on Monday was ridiculous. He said that the relationship with the ACC had been strained. He said it was not irreparable damage, but that it opened their eyes and it caught their attention, and that it had certainly done permanent damage to the relationship between the conference and Notre Dame. Give me a break. I can't say enough how ridiculous this is. Join the conference. And I think that's one of the things that is probably driving a lot of this, Tommy, is that when the college football playoff expanded to 12 teams, I think a lot of people, including a lot of Golden Domers, thought that all but secured their opportunity to get into the playoff. And therefore, they didn't need to join any conference. But what happened is that when kind of the rules changed, and it was changed so, a group of 5 team was no longer guaranteed to get in. And so that was the headline, right? Instead, the top 5 conference champions were guaranteed to get in. Well, Notre Dame's not in a conference. So that removes 5 spots from them to be in contention of. So essentially, they're playing for one of the top 7 at-large spots, which means they've got to be really good. They were good this year, but they weren't good enough. And so I think that's where a lot of the frustration is coming from. And then Jim Phillips is very PC and polite. He did issue a response. I would have liked to have seen that much firmer, but that's just not how Jim Phillips operates. He's a gentleman, as they say, but really just kind of a silly situation with Notre Dame.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. To your point, and folks listening to this, and watching this should know that Greg Barnes was all over this back in 2020. I mean, raising Cain with the ACC or about the ACC bending over backwards to Notre Dame, and they did. And obviously Notre Dame has their other sports in the conference, all the non-revenue sports. Basketball, of course, is there, and that is beneficial for for Notre Dame and for the ACC, fairly enough. But the football is certainly the bellwether there, Greg. So, why did two-part question? Why didn't the Notre Dame system or the Bavacqua or whoever makes the decisions just say bye to the ACC? And conversely, why didn't the ACC just say peace? Go find you a conference. And to the Notre Dame fans that are saying they'd be favored against every SEC school this year because they beat Arkansas like a drum, go play them. Why doesn't one of those two things happen here?
I mean, Miami didn't even make the ACC championship game, right? And yet they were able to handle Notre Dame. But regardless, so the reason that Notre Dame can't just skip town is because back ahead of that 2016 season when the ACC signed the Grant rights deal, that 20-year deal that was quite significant, they worked to try to convince Notre Dame to join the league. That did not happen. But what they did do is they signed that contract with Notre Dame where they would agree to play 5 conference games against Notre Dame. So 5 conference teams had games against Notre Dame each year. So that helped fill out Notre Dame's schedule. It gave the ACC this high-profile game 5 times a year. And in doing so, the agreement was that Notre Dame would sign the deal. They would get a partial share of the revenue. And if they chose to join a conference during the length of that Grant rights contract, which runs through 2036, it would have to be with the ACC, or else they would be breaking contract. Now, of course, with the news coming out back in the spring about the ACC switching up how their Grant rights deal was structured because of the Clemson and Florida State lawsuit. That kind of changes things. Like once a team decides to leave the ACC, which will happen eventually and probably soon, that shakes up everything, and maybe that's an out for Notre Dame. But the fact that the ACC this past year, the most recent year that we have for the financial data, paid out roughly $44 million per conference member. Notre Dame got half that. Notre Dame got $22 million. Without being a football member. And as you know, Tommy, and everybody listening to this knows, the bulk of the money coming in is because of football. So Notre Dame has this a posh setup with the ACC. And the ACC, for some reason, still thinks there's that chance that Notre Dame will join. I hate to tell you, Notre Dame's not joining. They have no reason to. And I think it's going to take the ACC not dissolving, because that's not what's going to happen, but there's going to be a massive restructuring in the years to come as some of these teams decide to leave for greener pastures. And I think at that point in time, there's going to be a decision made about Notre Dame that, hey, okay, this has been a good relationship for a while. We need it to end. But with Pete Bavacqua going on rants like he did, I mean, I understand like Notre Dame fans probably are eating it up, but I would hope that everybody in the ACC office is just kind of rolling their eyes, if not laughing, about some of his comments.
Yeah, and to be fair, if we were all Notre Dame people, we would be mad too. There's no question about it. And so I understand it. But to your point, and I would wager that people watching this again and paying attention didn't realize that Notre Dame was getting $22 million out of a pot and not even having to put in all their chips. Greg, say that again, because $22 million is a lot of money. Notre Dame gets all their other – Notre Dame makes money from NBC. Notre Dame makes money on all their deals, and they are pilfering, my words, the ACC for $22 million. That is the definition of insanity. And to your point, that's why Bavacqua just needs to settle down.
Yeah, so in 2022-23, the ACC generated a record $706 million. Of course, only 14 football playing members at the time. They each got 44.8 million. Notre Dame, a member in all sports with football, received 22.1. So they received a half share without having to play football. And you're right that Notre Dame fans are frustrated and have a right to be frustrated. But as we talked the other day, Tommy, I do think it's relevant to say that Bavacqua's line of thinking with all this, with how Notre Dame kind of got screwed, is that he was watching the selection show every Tuesday night and listening to what was said, thinking that this was how things were going to play out. And as we discussed, that was never the intention. The intention is just to get publicity on the CFP process, but every single week is just a snapshot of that week. It is not projecting forward. And so what happens when you get to the final week and you're the penultimate week, you had Notre Dame number 10, you had BYU number 11, and Miami 12. Well, BYU gets blitzed by Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. So now as you go into that final meeting, you've got your full slate of games already played. You have all the data that you need, and you're looking there and you see, okay, we have Notre Dame right beside Miami. Well, the easiest way to kind of figure out who's better, did they play one another? They did. And that's it. That's it. And Bavacqua's, we thought we were in, and then it was, the rug was pulled out from under us. That's just not how this works. And if that's a thing where the CFP committee has to do a better job of communicating that, hey, I understand we do these TV shows and they get a lot of ratings and it's fun to watch. Don't pay attention to it. None of it matters until Selection Sunday. That's it. And so maybe there's blame there, but we knew that. I think most people watching know that. It's just a TV gig, right? I mean, it's a way to drive ratings. So just a lot of holes in Pete Bavacqua's commentary this week.
Bracketology. People eat it up means nothing. Greg, last question for you here on today's segment. Opting out of bowls. Notre Dame's obviously done it. Several other teams have done it. Several 5-7 teams have done it. Is the bowl system just dead? And what should they do about these? I like the idea of playing them to start the next season, maybe. What to do with bowls? Now, the college football playoff is amazing. There's going to be some ugly games this year early, but for the most part, I like that system. But the bowl system's got to be dead, right?
It's certainly dying. I think there's an opportunity there to understand, okay, hey, we don't need 80 teams or whatever it is playing in bowl games. But really what the bowl game setup was supposed to be was bringing in fan bases to a unique area, right? And then really funding that community with economic incentives. And that worked for a long time until it didn't. And we still have that structure in place. And for anybody that's been to bowl games around the holidays of late, unless it's a prime time game, there's just not many people at the games anymore. It's really kind of a TV thing, and a lot of the ratings are really driven by gamblers, and your individual fan bases. So I think there's an opportunity to really kind of revamp what that is now that we're in the CFP era. I mean, of course, at the FCS level, you just have the playoff, and that's it. Nobody else plays anything. But I think there's an opportunity where, while you do have your 12 teams now, and that's probably going to shift to 16 in a few years, while those are your primary matchups, you can get creative and you can do like a ACC SEC challenge or a Big Ten SEC challenge with 5 teams from each, and you mix them up however you want to. And you can do certain things like that to drive interest. But just the idea of saying, we're going to take the 5th team out of the Big Ten and play them against the 2nd team out of the ACC and hope people show up, I think that is DOA.
Yeah, the ACC slate this year, there's a couple watchable or have on the TV in the background games, but not much must-watch TV. And who wants to go to Shreveport in late December? I think Greg's done that before, and I don't think he wants to repeat that trip. That's Greg Barnes. I'm Tommy Ashley. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. And look, this is a great time to sign up for Inside Carolina. Go to InsideCarolina.com, sign up for $1. Get Inside Carolina Premium. Not only do you get the Johnny T-shirt discount, which is amazing, you get all the premium content from Greg, Sherelle, Rob, Don Callahan, all the work that those guys are doing. There is no off season, and it's a perfect time to be a part of the Inside Carolina family. Thanks, Greg.